Hello and thank you for tuning in to Millennium Movies. Apologies for this ultra late video, but no more wasting any of your time. Let's get right into this recap and review of the Servant series finale. So, Uncle George really called it a couple of episodes back, didn't he? Where he basically told Leanne in the tunnels and essentially told the audience too, hey, Leanne is the only one who has the power to take herself out, and if she wants to save the people that she loves and cares for, and save the world essentially, she needs to take herself out. And ultimately, Leanne does that in this episode. I've been saying all season long that Leanne, I think, needs to go by the end of this series, or otherwise, I feel like she's too big of a threat. She's too powerful of an entity, of a person, of a presence, of a powerhouse to stay alive. And she ultimately does sacrifice herself, and she does it in a way where, she should have gone out in the first place, because we know as a little girl that her family was, they all died in a house fire except for her, because Uncle George, brought her out of it, saved her, and gave her new life. And then thus she became a Church of the Lesser Saints member. And she's basically correcting that mistake, basically, of what Uncle George did, and she's saying, no, I need to go out the exact same way I should have gone out, which was in a blaze of glory, or you could call it a blaze of unholy glory, however you want to, view it for this episode. But man, the sequence where Leanne does finally go out and she does, light herself on fire, it was a gnarly sequence. It was very uncomfortable to watch, to see someone in such pain and anguish like that. It was brutal. It was very brutal, and I honestly did feel bad for Leanne in that moment. And in this episode, I did feel for her, and for some of the the lead up to that moment where she's even having that final conversation with Toby. I really did not expect Toby to show up in the finale, but it's always good to see Tony Revolori, and they're making those plans for the next day, even though Leanne knows in her heart of hearts, she knows the reality of the situation. She's not going to live to have that happily ever after with Toby. But that was a sweet moment, or bittersweet moment, I should say, and I did feel bad for Leanne. But the parts that did include Dorothy speaking to her on the top, I understand what they were trying to go for, where like Dorothy is sort of viewing this from a lens of where Dorothy now realizes her mistake, so she's viewing Leanne differently. But I feel like that sort of felt a little rushed to me, and same with Sean's willingness to just, say, hey, get in the car, Leanne, let's all get out of here together, It just felt sort of rushed to me in terms of the way the Turners started treating Leanne in this episode, where it was like, oh, now we're concerned about Leanne's health and well-being. I think that sort of felt rushed to me, and I didn't fully buy it, because we didn't get enough time to sort of forgive Leanne and have Dorothy forgive herself. So that, those payoffs don't quite, work as well as if, you spent a little bit more time with these moments. But moving on from that, something else that felt really rushed to me, even though it did create for a very unsettling ending and a very uncomfortable ending, was the whole thing with Julian. So essentially what we find out is that one of the police officers is actually a Church of the Lesser Saints member, and she's basically telling Dorothy that, she was sent to look after one of her sisters, that being Leanne. So she's always known about all the stuff that's been going on with the Turners and Leanne ever since Dorothy lost her son, Jericho. And I don't know if I like that. I don't know if I like that story, that storyline. I mean, I don't want to call it a story thread, I should say. I don't know if I like it, because it just doesn't feel like, it's something that was, it doesn't feel like something that was earned, I want to say. Because we've seen that officer, twice, maybe? Maybe she was in the very beginning of Servant. I forgive me if I'm forgetting, because it's been a long time. I watch a lot of content, so I mean, I know I forget some of these things, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we've only ever seen this officer twice in the series, and now we're supposed to believe that, no, she was here keeping a watchful eye this whole time. I don't know so much if I buy that, but I will say that the ending revelation that Julian did in fact die back when he had that sort of that drug and alcohol overdose, I believe that was in season 2 or season 3, but basically, when that happened, he died, and Leanne used her gift to bring him back, and now that makes him, by association of this gift, this miracle that he was given, this rebirth, that makes him now that makes him an honorary member, basically, of the Church of Lesser Saints. And we see in the moment where there's all these civilians who are walking in the background, they sort of stop, and they're staring at Julian having this conversation with the police officer in this moment. And that does create for a very unsettling scene. And I did really like the symbolism of, I mean, it's kind of, in your face, but I did like the symbolism of when Julian looked into the mirror and, we saw the angel wings, right? From the painting, in the background, sort of yes, like Julian is basically an angel, right? Like now he's sort of, he's died and he's risen again. And so I like that symbolism, but again, it just feels sort of rushed and unearned to me, because it just feels like, oh, hey, by the way, this is also here too. And it doesn't feel like they really, it doesn't really feel like they paid enough attention to that whole storyline. If you're going to pay it off with the final scene in the whole series of Julian being, now a member of the Church of Lesser Saints, not by him wanting to be, but just by him, just being, the beneficiary of being brought back to life. That's a moment that happened again, I think in season 2, maybe season 3, but ever since it happened, it has never been talked about since. It's never been touched upon since. So I don't know if I sort of like that payoff and I don't know if I like the series ending on that note. The Turners do get a very sort of happy ending. They get a cleansing, basically, right? And that makes sense with the fire. The fire is being representative of a cleansing and a fresh start for the Turners. And in one sense, Dorothy has accepted that Jericho is gone, so now she can at least begin to feel she can begin the healing process of understanding what happened to her, and she can take responsibility for what happened, and I'm sure Sean will as well, and they're going to get a fresh start, and they get to basically get a redo, right? So everything works out for the Turners in terms of Sean and Dorothy, which I enjoy. I did want to see those characters have a sort of a happier ending. It's not a happily ever after, but they did get off relatively clean in terms of everything that they've been through and what they have done, their previous mistakes, so it worked out for the Turners. And I gotta say again, I did like this series finale. I just feel like there's some moments that definitely feel rushed and unearned, and so that's sort of just what irks this series finale from being like an A or an A+ for me. I think overall the series of Servant to me will always be a solid B+, and that's fine. It doesn't need to be anything more. It could have been better, sure, but I think with everything that we've touched on with this episode and this series as a whole, and especially this season, I just feel like there's some things that sort of felt like sort of missed opportunities with the Servant series. But overall, I really did enjoy this series. I enjoyed the acting, I enjoyed the direction, I enjoyed the cinematography, the weird camera angles that we got in some of these episodes, the mystery in some of the earlier seasons, the suspense that we've gotten throughout, the comedy bits, even with Julian sort of ending on a expletive, right? That's classic Julian. I enjoyed this series. I really did. So I think that's where I'm going to leave off this video. For those of you who have been tuning into my Servant videos since season 2, thank you again very much. I apologize for being late with this recap and review, but let me know what you're thinking in the comment section below. I want to have a conversation with you guys. I want to know what you're thinking of this finale, this finality, this ending to the Servant series, even though it does sort of leave off on this open-endedness of, well, now Julian has his own thing. Are we going to get the Julian spinoff? I don't think so. But yeah, let me know what you're thinking down in the comment section below. And as always, if you want to stay up to date on all the latest on world of movie and TV news, well, you're already in the right place, and consider subscribing to the channel because I would love to have you along for the ride. But until next time, this has been Millennium Movies, and I will see you all very soon.